All right, I think we're doing that. So we are, we're starting up the 40X program for Village for fall of the rest of this year. It's hard to believe it's already September. So we got what, September, October, November, December. We got 4 months. So this will last about 3.5 to 4 months. And then we'll have we'll hopefully have some good success with it. But I wanted to go through today with you just an overview. I think everybody's watched that little 5-6 minute video that super enthusiastic guy who wrote the book did as an overview. So if you haven't, do that because it's helpful. I'm not going to show it to you again today, but I want to run through just a little bit more details and ask a few questions. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I can do that.
Allie wants to be in someone's group.
Hi, Chris. Welcome to Village.
Oh, I didn't see Chris. Hi.
Yeah. Hey, Chris.
This may be his first Village thing.
Hey, y'all. How are you? Good to see you. I'm, that's not me.
Hey, it's Matt.
All right.
Well, it's good to see you all. Thank you for having me.
Indeed. So if everybody can mute yourself for a minute. Can y'all see my screen here?
Yes.
All right. So let's see if I can mute. Why am I not seeing the option to mute everybody here? I'm going to mute. All right. Cool. So I've got everybody muted except for me, I think. So let me run through, and if you need to ask a question, and at some point I'll here in a few minutes I will ask for some feedback. But where is so if you want to unmute yourself, you can either press and hold the space bar like a walkie-talkie and talk that way, or you can just unmute yourself. But just anybody that wants to volunteer, some of y'all put some really cool stuff in there, so I have a sense of it. But what are y'all hoping to get out of this?
Zach, I'd say relationships, relationship building with other agents was big for me.
Great. Love that. And that will happen. What you put into it, you'll get out of it. Who else?
Accountability.
Accountability. I like it. Anybody else?
I'll say that if this is going to contribute to habit and routine building, that's something I need in a big way. So I'm hoping to have some patterns happen more and get into more of a business machine dynamic.
Very good. So habit and routine building. I like it. So a few kind of rules and guidelines. So one, showing up is really, really important. And I know we all get busy and there's a lot of things that we can commit to. But this really only works if you show up 100% and prepared and ready to go. Obviously, whatever you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And so I've seen these things be super successful and I've seen them fall flat. And without a doubt, every time they fall flat is when people just kind of go through the motions. We keep them pretty short because we're all real estate agents and we like to stay busy doing different things and excite ourselves with new shiny things all the time. But this is ultimately probably 3.5 months. So it's just long enough to really get in the zone and try to build good habits. And but hopefully everybody can be here now and somewhere else later. I'd also ask just during your groups, just again, the weekly sessions should be no more than 20 minutes. So just turn your phone off and come prepared. Obviously, secondly, taking a risk. Taking risks is important, and being vulnerable. We're all, I don't know if you read that quote this morning about fear, but fear holds us back from a lot of things. And so whether you recognize that that's fear, or sometimes we call that procrastination, but a lot of times that's fear. And so I would just encourage you all to take some courage, to be vulnerable and share what you know, and ask others for help in what you don't know. Number 3, open up. Truth is freedom. Freedom's scary, but the most valuable gift you have to share is yourself. So if you can do that, then you'll get a lot out of it, and you'll give to others as well. And then number 4, be curious, right? So this is about accountability, and we want to keep them short and sweet, but you'll build some relationships with other agents, and I would encourage you to be curious, challenge them. If they say, if you feel like they're kind of going through the motions, in a loving and friendly way, call them out and ask questions, dig a little deeper and be curious. Celebrate yourself, celebrate others, delight in that. And then just stay true, practice confidentiality. Obviously, we're all doing stuff that is we're sharing stuff in our own groups, but part of what makes this work is really being open and sharing. And so if you've got something that you want to keep confidential, just say that, and please respect that. And obviously just trust your gut with that. So if y'all have any questions on that, let me know. But a few guidelines as well. Hang on one second. I'm gonna move my stuff up top here. A few guidelines. One, eliminate the question why. This is something that I've learned as a parent, is try to replace the word why. Like, why did you do that? That can sometimes come across as aggressive. Probably what were you thinking is not much better, but clarifying things like, hey, what was your thought process when you were thinking through that commitment, or when did you do that action that ultimately led to that struggle. Try to avoid yes, no questions. And then again, just practice genuine curiosity. So a little bit about 40X work. So why does it work? Well, one, the primary reason it works is because it's about changing behavior patterns. So what we're trying to do here is build patterns for success and create new habits, right? So we all understand habits can lead us to successful places or unsuccessful places, depending on the habit. But it mainly works for three primary reasons. One, it's about you and your individual goals. So what doesn't typically work, we've all had jobs, and we're probably in the real estate business because we don't like having bosses that much. And so what we don't like is somebody saying, you need to do this, and you've got 2 days to do it. But if you tell yourself, I'm going to do this, and I've got 7 days to do it, then you're much more likely to complete that. And so you define the lead measures. We're going to go through this a little bit to help understand what the differences between lead measures and commitments are, and lag measures, et cetera. But also the idea of keeping score. Everybody plays differently when they're keeping score. So if you played sports as a kid or an adult, or if you have done any sort of friendly competition, or maybe you played poker with friends, who knows, right? Whenever you're keeping score, you play a little bit differently. If you're just going through the motions and trying to do it by yourself, we're never going to give it our best. And so, or rarely will we give it our best. But if we've got just a little bit of peer pressure in a good way, and we can keep score, it makes it really fun. And it's the accountability from each other, not from your group leaders. They're really facilitators in this, but it's the accountability from each other that makes this work. And then the third reason it works is it's fun to win, right? So if you can set your goals and your commitments and lead measures to be attainable, I would rather you be attainable and hit your goal than shoot for the moon and miss your goal, right? So it's fun to win. If you've ever listened to Dave Ramsey, he's all about that. I was so confused when, I remember learning about hearing his philosophy of paying off the lowest balance. If you've got credit card debt, paying off the lowest balance first, right? Even if there's a higher interest rate with a higher balance, right? Because that's counterintuitive to financial wisdom. But what he is is working on is behavior patterns and that thrill of winning, right? So if you can have that first taste of success and it feels good and you're motivated to do more. So that's going to be powerful in making this successful. So there's a few things that are required to make this successful. Again, one, choosing the right lead measures. And we're going to talk about that. I've got some examples, but the idea is to do less in order to achieve more. So you're not trying to quit your day job, but what we do as agents is oftentimes we compare ourselves to each other, and we see, somebody just killing it on social media, and somebody else just picking up leads at open houses, and somebody else is doing postcard campaigns and having a ton of success with that. And we feel the urge to try to do all of those things, and we usually do a kind of a crummy job at a lot of them, right? So when we spread our energy across a lot of things, it's not very effective. And so the idea is to focus your energy on the one or two most important things, and really it's a bet. So if you're saying, to get a little bit of Hunter's Vegas odds in here, so if you're saying, I'm willing to make a bet that if I do these two things and do them consistently every week, it's going to have an impact. And I'm not trying to not do my other stuff completely, but I want to put all of my extra energy into these probably two things. We're going to hone it down to 2 lead measures. The other piece that is not, it's a little annoying for agents. We don't like paperwork that much. Most of us don't. And so, but it's important to keep score. And when you're keeping your own score, you're more likely to be to stay true to what you committed to doing. So you want to track those activities and then put them in before your weekly meeting. The third one is an agreement from each team member, obviously, to participate. Show up every single week and answer these 3 questions in front of your peer group, right? So what commitments did you do last week? So the first group, you'll say, this week I'm going to commit to doing these 1, 2, or 3 things. And how did those move the scoreboard? Did they result in anything? And you're probably not going to see results the first few weeks because you're getting into those patterns, unless you're just already dialed into those patterns and trying to keep those up. The second question is, did I complete the lead measures? And again, we'll go through the difference between the commitments and lead measures, but they sometimes align, sometimes they don't. But the idea with a commitment is a commitment for getting more real estate sales would not be necessarily, I'm going to go get dog food at the grocery store, unless the grocery store is the place where you just pick up business, right? So a third part of that is what commitments, the third question is, what commitments will you make next week to help impact your lead measures and move the scoreboard? So it's just those 3 questions. The idea is to keep the weekly sessions to 20 minutes. So they're short, sweet, to the point, and then you're doing a little bit of the work, or doing the work with a little bit of extra time during the week. Any questions so far? All right. So what are those 4 disciplines? So the first one is, and this is from a book written by Franklin Covey, it's a Franklin Covey program. If any of you have ever read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it's the same group that does that. So this is one of their programs. But the first one is focus on the wildly important, right? So the question is if every other area of your business remained at its current level of performance, what one area would we want to improve the most? Now, as a real estate agent, we do a lot of things, but really we have one primary area of our business that is important, right? And it's getting more sales. Now, if you've already got a ton of sales, then it might be honing in on customer service or repeat business, but all of those things are designed to create more sales. So in our capacity here, we're going to talk about more sales. And the way that we're doing that is to count executed purchase and sale agreements. And so I always get the question, what if I get a contract and it falls out from an inspection contingency? That's okay. You did the work that got the buyer or the seller to get the contract. And if you've done that, then those are things that you can control. The inspection stuff is not necessarily something you can control. The second thing is, well, we just talked about that, executing purchase agreements. So you want the kind of the formula of a WIG, or a wildly important goal, which is what this book calls it. It's a goal, is to go from X to Y by when, right? So you have a starting line, a finish line, and a deadline, right? So we're going to go from 0, starting either next week. Some of the groups are on Monday, so y'all are going to start, since Labor Day is next Monday, y'all are going to start the week after next. I think. Just talk to your group leaders about that. And then, but we want to basically kind of start a reset at 0 for when we start this goal. And then by mid-December, we'll stop at mid-December just so we're not trying to end it when there's a zillion other things going on at the end of the year and the holidays. But to go from 0 to 2 contracts, to go from 0 to 10 contracts, whatever that is, and we're going to track that so that you can do that, right? The second lead measure is to the second discipline rather is to act on the lead measures. So the first that first WIG is a lag measure, right? By the time you've done the activities that produce that contract, it's those things are long gone, right? So it takes a couple of months to get, oftentimes to get to the point of getting a client under our belts, showing them houses or meeting with a seller, getting into the market and getting that contract. And so the lead measures are the activities that drive the opportunities to get those purchase agreements. Make sense? So if you have lead measures, they, as I said before, there's a strategic bet. The 2 things that are important are they're predictive of the results, right? So a lead measure could be, you go to the next, let's see here. Examples of lead measures could be, I want to send out, X number of real estate reviews each week. I want to engage in X number of social media interactions with my sphere. I want to preview 3 properties each week and post about at least one of them on social media, right? So the idea is that you're not doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that, that you're doing, 2 lead measures every single week consistently. And it sounds easy, but it gets hard after, a few weeks. If you're previewing, 3 properties each week and you're not used to doing that, then after a month of doing that, you're going to get, it's going to be hard. You're going to be like, gosh, I need to preview some more properties, but it forces you to think outside of the box a little bit and be creative. Another option, maybe deliver a gift to, 2 households in my sphere each week. You've probably heard a lot of success stories of agents of Village who've had success. Just thinking about somebody, thinking about what matters to them, especially during this time, dropping something off. I think Allison Lambert got over $1 million worth of business because she hadn't talked to somebody. She felt a little guilty. She was driving by their house and she was near a store and she said, I'm just going to go get a candle. She got a candle, had it wrapped, brought it to their house and ended up like reconnecting with them. And then they bought something within a month. So if you're there and you're present, it can happen. Call X number of people in my sphere each week to check in on how they're doing. Write, 10 handwritten notes to my sphere each week. Add 4 people in my database each week. So they are broad enough that you can kind of work within those. What doesn't usually work is open houses, because unless you're going to do an open house every single week, then it's hard to do. So these are all designed to be weekly lead measures. But to go back to the lead measures, so that's a bet, right? Am I willing to bet that if I write 10 notes every single week, that's going to turn into some conversations, some engagements, some awareness, and that I will probably get some benefit out of that. The second thing is it influenceable, right? So is it predictive of results and is it influenceable? Can I control that, right? So an example of a lead measure that is not influenceable would be, I'm going to get 3 new leads every single week, right? So that's a little bit broad, or maybe I'm gonna get 3 new internet leads every single week, right? That's hard to influence unless you're really talented in that and can know how to drive that. That's kind of the luck of the draw. So so are they influenceable? Are they things that you can control? So and then from a brainstorming idea, again, you can pick these, and I gave you that list there and I sent it out in the email. And there are probably others that that would be good too. A lot of them before were face-to-face interactions. We're not doing those as much, but think about what works for you. And then if you think it's going to have the most impact on moving the needle when executed with high impact consistency, then it's probably a good lead measure. So, and again, thinking about these, let's see here. And again, the second to last piece is probably the most important. The goal is to apply a disproportionate amount of energy to the activities that drive your lead measures forward. And those are the weekly commitments. So the lead measures are something that are consistent every single week. So let's say one of your lead measures is, I'm going to write 10 notes every single week to, maybe that's it. I'm just going to write 10 notes. And so your weekly commitment might be, I'm going to write notes to these 10 people, right? That's a very specific commitment that directly influences the lead measure. Maybe after doing that, you start running out of people to write notes to. So maybe you need to have some interactions that create an opportunity to write a note. So maybe one of your weekly commitments could be, I'm going to call 3 of my past clients and just check in on them. And then that'll give you an opportunity to have an excuse to follow up with a note. So-and-so, it was so nice talking to you. Loved hearing about the, the new dog that y'all got, yada, yada. If there's ever anything I can do to help, let me know. Does that make sense? So the third piece is create a compelling scoreboard. And I'm going to go through that with you in a minute. But the idea is that people play differently when they're keeping score. It's very visual. You can see your progress. And then it shows, again, the go from X to Y by when. It shows where we are now, where we should be now, and where we're trying to go. So weekly commitment tracker. So again, probably the biggest piece of confusion here, and so I want people to chime in. If unmute yourself and ask questions, don't be afraid to do that. The biggest piece of confusion is, what is the difference between a weekly commitment and a lead measure? So again, a lead measure doesn't ever change. It's the same thing. I'm going to write 10 notes every single week. I'm going to call 4 people and check in on them. I'm going to send out 2 real estate reviews to people in my sphere. A commitment would, if you look at the third bullet point here, the one question is, does it represent a specific deliverable? So what I see a lot is, I'm going to focus on my database. How do you measure that, right? Because the question that you're trying to answer the next week is, did I complete that? Yeah, I focused on my database, probably a little bit. It crossed my mind, right? That's hard to measure. So try to resist, or I would say, don't try to resist. Just don't say, I plan on focusing on, or I'll work on, or I'll think about, or I'll, words like that. You want it to be specific. So I'm going to do these things, or I'm going to do these specific number of activities. And then you can say, yes, you did it, or no, you didn't. Does the commitment influence the lead measures? So if one of your lead measures is to go and, let's say, go preview 3 properties and post about them on social media every week. Maybe a weekly commitment could say, I'm going to go drive around the Inglewood neighborhood in East Nashville. Does that influence it? Maybe, right? You're probably going to come, if you're not familiar with that, you're familiarizing yourself with a new area, and then you might run across some properties, see some cool things. So I would say that does influence the lead measure. If you say, I'm going to go to the grocery store and buy dog food just because I need to do that, or I'm going to clean my house, those are all activities, but they don't drive the lead measure. Does that make sense? The third piece is a time lane. So this is where the open houses as a lead measure don't work, but as a commitment, they could work, right? So maybe you need to write some notes before your next week session, and you're running out of people to write notes to. So you're going to say, I'm going to host an open house and make sure that I get at least 3 people's addresses at that open house. And so you're going to be focused on doing that. You're probably not going to leave the open house until you can have some good conversations with people, enough that you can find out who they are. Maybe you look them up in tax records or look them up in 401 and find their address, but it gives you some opportunities to write a note. So that directly influences your lead measure, which ultimately helps bring you some more opportunities for getting a executed purchase agreement. We'll go through the color coding in a minute, but then this fourth discipline is just creating a cadence of accountability. So this is the 20-minute weekly WIG session. Y'all can do it in Zoom, in person, some combination. We got the big training room upstairs at Village, so if that works, you just talk about that within your group, and y'all can decide what that looks like. But the first three disciplines set up the game. Discipline is four is where the execution really happens, right? And this is where it's fun because you get to know each other, you get to hold each other accountable, and that's really important, right? So please don't just rely on your leader, facilitator to hold everybody accountable. The idea is for this to be a team approach and for us to help build each other up and to challenge each other. So if you've seen somebody in your group hasn't done their commitments or their lead measures for the last 3 weeks in a row, maybe you pull them aside and just say, hey, is everything going okay? Anything I can help you with? Seems like you got a lot going on and you're not totally checked in because ultimately you're helping them and you're helping the group and you're helping yourself that way as well. But the question with, again, with weekly commitments are one or two most important things I can do in the next week outside of the whirlwind. The whirlwind is just kind of everything else that we do to impact the scoreboard. 2 secrets to making discipline for work: meet every week at the same time without fail, and then each team member making their own commitments to each other to move the lead measures forward. So we've got our time set up. I think everybody's aware of what that is. If you're not, let your leader know. If you're not sure who your leader or facilitator is, you can let me know, and I'll get you set up. But again, as a recap for this weekly WIG session, some examples. So you report on it. So last week I committed to calling my past clients with closings over the last 3 months to check in, make sure they're doing well, still loving their new home. I learned that calling them individually made them feel appreciated, and one of them turned into a referral for a neighbor who's going to sell her house soon. That's awesome. And even if that was just your commitment, maybe your lead measure was writing notes, but you wanted to have an excuse to write a note to somebody. So you started calling past clients so that then you could follow up with a note. Review the scoreboard. So find out what's working, where you're having success and where you're struggling. And sometimes we have blocks that we just, maybe we picked a lead measure or we're picking commitments that are really out of our comfort zone and we're having some fear that it is blocking us. So talk through that, work through that, and don't feel bad about yourself. Just learn about it, because the idea is that everybody's gonna have a failure moment at some point where you don't do what you say you're gonna do. That's okay. That's totally normal. But learn from it. Try to dig into why and ask your team to help. And then clear the path and make new commitments. So this is where the collaboration works. So if you see somebody in your group that's struggling, or if you're struggling, ask for help, right? And so, maybe you said like, gosh, I've been meaning to, I keep saying I'm going to add 10 people in my database, but I've realized that my database is a mess and I don't really have the things, and somebody else might be really good at that and say, well, I can help you with that. Here's a process that worked for me. Maybe we sit down after the meeting for a few minutes and I can run through that with you. Y'all with me? So just a few quick rules. If you have an executed contract that falls through, you can still count it. That's okay. Track your attendance. The group leader is going to track your attendance, or you can track your attendance. If you consistently don't attend, and there's going to be somebody who, just life gets in the way, you might be asked to leave the group just because it ends up kind of messing up the dynamic of the group. So please do attend. And then take a look at your scoreboard every day. That's hard, but try to build that into your routine, just to glance at it every day and remind yourself in the morning, what do I need to be doing for my next Monday, Wednesday, Thursday meeting? And even if you don't do that, what is beautiful about this, and I'm guilty or a good example of this myself, is when I've done these, I'm doing one right now with a group, and I committed to doing something, and we were meeting Monday morning at 11 o'clock, and I said, well, I did my commitments, and somebody else asked, well, what did they say? I was to call a couple of people, and I said, well, I haven't talked to them because I just called them about 20 minutes ago. But I wouldn't have called them if I hadn't been in that position where I was going to have to tell everybody that I called them. So yeah, I hadn't heard back from them yet, but I did do what I said I was going to do, even if it was at the last minute. So it does keep you on track on a weekly basis to keep things moving. So just some next steps. We're going to talk about lead measures. I'm going to show you a scoreboard example in a minute just to go through. Some of you have done this before, some of you have not. And then obviously all of you have Zoom. You're on that. So, but that's it. We're just going to have a lot of fun. Let me switch my screen share real quick. And I'm going to take a minute to just see who has questions. Unmute yourself if you have a question, comment.
Hey, Zach, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Now I can't hear you. I think if you press and hold your space bar.
I think I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So can you just review again real quick the difference in the two lead measures that you choose and your weekly commitments and how they relate?
Absolutely. So again, this is the most common point of confusion in the whole program. So let me go through an example of some, hang on one second. Let me just share my screen real quick one more time. All right, so this was an example of a group from that Andrea had last time around. I don't think Will's in our meeting here, but the scoreboard here goes through and it shows this little gray line shows what your goals are, right? So they were trying to get to 59 executed purchase agreements by the end of that 4-month period. And so they were kind of, the blue line shows where they were doing really well, and then they sunk a little bit below it, and then they creeped back up just above it right at the end, which is awesome. You've got some, all of these kind of main scoreboards will basically carry over from what's in your individual tab, and I'll show you that in a second. But your weekly commitments, whether you did that, if you said I'm going to do these 3 things and you did those, or this one thing and you did them, then you get 100%. If not, it kind of green, yellow, red. But if you look at Will for a second, his weekly commitments. So his 2 lead measures were complete and deliver 2 real estate reviews each week. So he was just writing down the people with whom he did that. And then his other lead measure was to engage with at least 5 people in his sphere of influence, right? So he said, held an open house. So I guess that's one of his clients maybe. So that would, I guess, count as that. Lunch, that person, committee meeting for church, and he wrote 10 notes. So he did, I would say he actually did, if you wrote 10 notes, he actually probably did about 14 things instead of just 5. So that's awesome. His weekly commitments, his first one was real estate review for 2 people. I would argue that that's not a great weekly commitment because you're already saying that you're doing that, right? These are things that you're committed to doing consistently every week. But this one, for instance, he's going to have 2 lunches and write 5 handwritten notes. So those are ways that you can, maybe the 2 lunches he could have and do a real estate review during those 2 lunches, bring a little thing and just deliver that as part of the lunch. Engaging with 5 people in his sphere of influence, well, he's doing that through 5 handwritten notes. So it's honing in a little bit more narrowly how you're going to achieve your lead measures, or doing things that will give you the opportunity to create a lead measure. So, for instance, he's doing 3 social media posts, right? Maybe he's running out of people to write notes to. So he's like, I need to create some opportunities for engagement, right? So I haven't been on social media in a while, so I'm going to make sure I do 3 social media posts. Maybe some people will like, some people will comment, and it'll just start a conversation, or somebody will come up and it'll remind me. Maybe a commitment could be, I need some more people to write notes to. So I'm going to spend 30 minutes this week browsing through social media, and I'm going to pick out 5 people that have life events going on so I can write to them. Does that make sense? The idea is really just it's measurable, right? So if he said, I'm going to focus on my database, that's not measurable. But it's a measurable commitment with more specificity. I've got 3 boxes here. That doesn't mean you have to do 3 commitments. But I would encourage you not to try to do more than 3 commitments, because what we found is that we all have, what is it, bigger eyes than our stomachs. And so we sometimes will say, I'm going to do this, because it feels good. Get a little boost of adrenaline. You want to commit to all these things, and then you're setting yourself up for failure. So I'd rather you do 1, 2, or 3 things and make those actually happen, as opposed to trying to shoot for the moon.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Like, here we go, like update Google business page profile. Well, that, what does that have to do with anything? Well, maybe he believes that that's a valuable way. If he's getting out there and writing notes and getting referrals, then one of the things that somebody's going to do, if one of your past clients says, hey, you got to use Steve to buy your house, the first thing they're probably going to do is look you up and Google you and find that. So maybe he was seeing some of that and felt like that was a valuable commitment. So your leaders will run through kind of how to use this, but basically you just type in each week, you type in your commitments here, and then if you did them, you just drop down. Did I do, if you did one, it'll populate that you committed to one thing, and then you say, did I do that one thing? Yep. Did I not? Whoop, you get a 0%. Make sense? All right, what other questions do y'all have? Fire away.
Hey, did you say, and pardon me if I missed this, I have not seen anything with a group set up in time already. Should I have received an email and I just glanced over it?
Yes, you did. I sent it yesterday.
We're gonna fire Lee Fund because he.
I have proof. I have proof.
All right, all good. Thank you.
I didn't see one either.
Who else is that? That's Stephanie.
Me, Stephanie.
Okay, we'll find out whose group y'all are in, and we'll make sure. I sent out a the kind of the mass email ones, and then if every leader probably sent you an email. If they haven't done that, they'll probably do that here soon. But again, the first week is always a little bit confusing, so go ahead and like carve out 30-35 minutes for that. But after that, you really want to keep it to 20 minutes. And the best thing that you can do from now until then is to start thinking through what you want those lead measures to be. So the commitments will come, and sometimes, ideally you come to the group and know what commitments you did. You've already input it in the scoreboard and you know which ones you're going to do. Sometimes though, you kind of just have to hear what other people are doing and you share ideas. So the examples of the lead measures that I sent out, again, you could do a real estate review each week, which is just simply a market update, basically, however you want to do it. A market update to a past client. You could do 1 or 2 of those every week. I would not encourage you to don't commit to doing 5 of those. That's usually unrealistic. You can do that for a couple of weeks and then you're probably going to fall off the wagon. Engage in, X number of social media interactions with my sphere, right? Meaning you're going to go seek out your people on social media and comment on their posts, or give them a call and just say, hey, I saw that trip you took to Hawaii. It looks amazing. Sorry you got COVID. Whatever. So the preview X number of properties each week and post about at least 1 of those or 2 of those on social media. Another one could be gifting, right? Deliver a gift to 1 person in my sphere each week with a thoughtful note attached. making phone calls to X number of people in my sphere. The whole idea with these is about how can I add value, right? I think that's a good litmus test for your lead measure is this really adding value or am I just soliciting business? Because if you're really adding value, calling people to genuinely check in on them, look up and see what they're doing and what they're struggling with or where they're having joys in their life and celebrating that or consoling them for where they're struggling, that's adding true value. And that's about the relationship building that I think, Seth, you mentioned about relationship building with each other, but we're in the business of building relationships with each other and our clients. And so you can truly engage with them and focus on that and not try to get distracted with, I gotta, do 6 photo shoots for my social media page and I gotta do, postcard campaigns and this and that. What we see is that you will have more success by truly engaging and adding value in your own network and sphere. And maybe if you don't feel like you have a great network and sphere, then your lead measures are about growing it, right? How do I grow it? Well, I'm going to participate in maybe it's a charity event, or that's a little bit harder right now, right? How do we do that? And if you're struggling with that, talk to your group about it. Talk to your leader about it. What are some other lead measure ideas that y'all have, or what have you, if you've done this program, what's worked for you in the past?
Phone calls and handwritten notes.
Phone calls and handwritten notes. Chris, what do you say on the, like if you're just calling somebody that you haven't talked to in a while? Sometimes I love the idea of doing that. And then sometimes I get a little scared of like, I feel bad I haven't talked to them in too long. And then what if they ask me a question I don't know the answer to, or like, what's your approach?
I get afraid too, what to put and what to say if somebody I haven't talked to in a while. Generally, if it's an anniversary, a 6-month or a 1-year anniversary of their home, send them a little note, little gift card in it. Just let them know I'm here. Also, if it's a note and I see them out just in passing, just good to see you.
That's great.
Really enjoyed our time together. That's it. Pretty brief.
And so you actually, you hit a good point there. So Steve, as an example of what Christopher just said, a lead measure could be, I want to call, or I want to write a note to 5 people. What I would not do as a lead measure is I want to send a note to 5 of my past clients for their home anniversaries, because you can't control that. You can't influence whether or not they have an anniversary in their past clients. Does that make sense? So keeping the lead measures just broad enough where you can make sure that you can creatively achieve those every single week, and not being so specific. The specificity comes in those weekly commitments where you can really hone in on exactly how you're going to achieve those lead measures or do something that will give you opportunities to be able to achieve your lead measures.
I have a thought, if I can, regarding reaching out to people on the phone that you haven't talked to in a long time.
Yeah.
I learned, because I had a few of those, and a couple of years ago after an installation, one of the exercises is specifically, to go out and call whatever it was.
Russian roulette, right?
So, and it was kind of terrifying, but I decided I looked around real quick and I instantly saw 2 or 3 people, and I called 2 of them that specifically I haven't talked to in ages. And it's kind of self-awareness, like, I don't know why, I just haven't. So I went with the call them up and they answered hello. And I'm like, hey, it's been forever. And that's on me. And you know what? I just flat out say, I really don't have anything important on this call, but I just realized we hadn't talked in a long time. So I want to fix that. I'm just reaching out to say, hey, see how I've been and stuff like that. So to me, it feels far more comfortable to just stick that out there right out front and just say, we haven't talked in a long time and that's why I'm calling. And so I'd love to make that not happen in the future. And because I have tried before to sort of manufacture a slick, conversation, and it's not the same. People can, for one, see right through that, and it's really not that genuine. So if you don't really have anything specific to offer something, man, just putting it right out there and being really honest with people, for most people, I think is actually a great connection. And then they totally open up. Oh man, this is great. Yeah, and it's been here's this, and each one of those calls, I got off the phone something like 35 or 40 minutes later. And it wasn't because I was trying to hang on to it. It's because we had all this stuff, and they genuinely enjoyed it and liked it. And then we've started talking ever since. So just my input on that, if specifically for people that you realize you should have been talking to and you haven't, even if it's just a personal relationship.
Own it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I sent a text to an agent, a village agent that I was feeling guilty and I hadn't talked to in a while. And I just said, hey, you just crossed my mind. It's true. Just crossed my mind. I hadn't talked to you in a while. Hope everything's going well. Would love to catch up sometime soon. And he was like, man, that like felt good when I got that. Thank you. And I realized I can do that to my clients. And he did that to his clients. He said, I'm going to commit to texting, just texting, because he had some call anxiety. He said, I'm going to commit to just texting 3 people or 5 people a day. Within 2.5 weeks, he had garnered almost $3 million worth of business. It was insane. So it's not rocket science. It does take consistency though. So that's great. Love that. Anybody else? Any facilitators, leaders have anything? Sylvia, what's up?
About the calls right now, culturally with COVID, everybody across the board is calling people that they haven't, because the world stopped, and so they're, looking at things differently. And so even more than ever, to talk to somebody that you haven't talked to in 8 years or something like that, it's just not a big deal and is kind of expected. So that should take another level of nervousness off, because people are craving being connected, and they love to get your call.
I met with a client yesterday, a past client who's moving out of Nashville. She's single and she can work remotely, and she's moving back home to Michigan because she's lonely. She's really, really lonely. And she said, I feel like I need to be close to my family. COVID has been really hard on me. I feel like I'm stuck in my house. I've got me and my cats. And she's like, I'm an introvert and I am like going crazy. So I mean, just think about that to your point. If somebody's reaching out, it can be genuine. I got a good friend of mine that I hadn't talked to. We talk probably 3 times a year, a good childhood friend. And about 3 weeks ago, he sent me a text and said, hey, you have time tonight for a Zoom call? Would love to catch up. I haven't talked to you in forever. And I said, sure. And we got to talking. We talked for 45 minutes over Zoom. We got into some like really cool, deep stuff. And I said, this was awesome. Like, what made you think about doing this? He said, I do one every single night. He said, it's my way of keeping in touch. And I was like, man, that's awesome. I'm still talking about it. It was actually 3 months ago. I'm still talking about it. So it made me feel really good. Who else?
I love the note writing. I'm Ann. I'm in Suwanee, and I love the note writing culture at Village. So I started writing notes in my last group. Then when the group ended, COVID started, and I started writing. Hampton knows about this. I started writing the oldest members of our community first, and I just went down the line. And it was just, I got thank you notes back. Just for writing a note to say, I'm checking in on you. I know we can't visit. I used to see you at the post office. And, it didn't just turn into business, but it sort of turned into like a little ministry. It's kind of great.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be about business. It's probably better a lot of times if it's not. I mean, we all know that real estate agents are like, hey, everybody wants to buy or sell a house today. Have them give me a call. Right? That doesn't feel great to receive that, especially if you haven't heard from somebody in a long time. So I think everybody has a pretty good sense of this. If y'all have any other questions, comments, check with me, check with your leaders. But I am super, super proud of everybody for doing this. This is it's a really cool program. Again, you get out of it what you put into it. But we've had some really amazing success stories from it. And I think y'all have some big opportunities ahead. And I can't wait to see the results. So Look forward to it.
Exactly.
If you don't, yeah.
Hey, it's Yolanda.
Hey, Yolanda.
Looking forward to it. I asked in the chat, are we going to receive that spreadsheet, which was wonderful?
That spreadsheet, yes. So I'm going to, I've got those built out for every group leader, and I'm going to send those to the group leaders
Okay.
there tomorrow, and then they will send those to you and make sure.
Okay, and didn't know if we would keep the example in there just so we'll fill it out properly.
That's not a bad idea.
If he's willing to share or just anyone's name.
That's not a bad idea. I'll make a tab as an example tab. Sounds good. I like it.
Thank you so much, y'all.
Good idea. All right, Andrea, you said in the chat, I just opened up the chat. If anybody needs to know who the group is, Andrea is the, Andrea Woodard is the official keeper of the group list. So she's got it all dialed in. So if you need to know who your group is, email her at andrea@andreawoodard.com. Anybody else? All right. Y'all have a wonderful week. Happy Wednesday. Getting over the hump, and we'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.